This is the Matthews family, whom I am named after. There were 13 children, but 2 of them died as babies. Of the 11 that lived, there were 3 girls and 8 boys. All 8 of the boys served in the military. This is one of the very few pictures of their whole family because there was always someone deployed. Uncle Dan, can you give me a summary of the Matthews family military history?
Sure. And Matt, thanks for having me come down tonight. This is a very proud thing for our family.
My Uncle Dan proceeded to tell me about the military history in the Matthews family. Now, I will share the information that he gave me with you. It all started when my great-uncle Tom joined the Air Force in 1945 at 18 years old. He was a gunner at the end of World War II. While he was in the service, his youngest brother Frank was born. He didn't meet Frank until he came out of the service when Frank was about 5 years old. Frank remembers that when he came home, Tom was wearing a huge gas mask and chased his little brother Frank around the dining room table. After that, my great-uncle Charlie joined the Army when he was 22 years old. He served in the POW camps during the Korean War. This was a very hard job because he had to take care of angry prisoners who wanted to escape. Then, my great-uncle Jack joined the Army when he was 20 years old, and he was a frontline infantryman. Before joining the Army, he was called up to play professional baseball. He was in the middle of his semi-pro baseball season when he left to serve for 13 months during the Korean War. Then, my grandpa, Robert Matthews, joined the Army at the age of 21. He knew he was going to be drafted, so he decided to enlist. He joined on November 30th, 1955, and was honorably discharged on December 27th, 1961. He was active duty from 1955 to 1957, Army Reserves from 1957 to 1959, and Army Standby from 1959 to 1961. He originally wanted to be in the Navy, but at the beginning of his training in Fort Hood, Texas, they made everyone stand in a straight line, and they went down the line and said, "Army, Navy, Army, Navy." He ended up getting placed in the Army, and the person next to him who wanted Army got Navy. They asked if they could switch, but they were told no. My grandpa was a decorated marksman and sharpshooter. Just before his group was deployed to Germany, he was injured. He thought he saw a cigarette on the ground, so he stepped on it to put it out, but it turned out to be a firecracker and it broke 2 of his toes. So he was never deployed overseas. He once told my mom the story of him surprising his family by coming home. He was so excited to surprise them. When he was at the front door, he saw his neighbor. He told his neighbor about how excited he was to surprise them when his neighbor said, Bobby, your family moved." So, then my grandpa asked where they moved, and he got on the next bus to their new house. After my grandpa was my great-uncle Ed, who joined the Army when he was 20. Uncle Ed was stationed in West Germany, where he met his future wife. While serving his country, he had the privilege to play on the Army baseball team. He loved his country and he loved baseball, so this was a great honor for him. After my Uncle Ed, my great-uncle Joe joined the Army at 18 years old. He was an infantryman in Korea during peacetime, after the Korean War, and actually joined the military before his older brother Billy. He originally wanted to go into the Marines with all of his friends, but switched to the Army on his older brother Bobby's recommendation. After my great-uncle Joe was my great-uncle Billy. Billy joined the Army when he was 20 years old and was stationed in Germany during the Vietnam War. His job was to identify the dead bodies of casualties, which was very hard to do and probably very disturbing. After my Uncle Bill was last but not least my great Uncle Frank. He was in the National Guard from 1964 to 1970 and joined when he was 22 years old. For his first 6 months of training, he was in Kentucky, but after that, he was stationed on Broad and Susquehanna in Philadelphia for 5.5 years. He was a sergeant in the 108th Artillery and also a cook. He was responsible for feeding 200 people. In 1964, during the Philadelphia race riots, he was sent to the site of the armory, which hadn't been built yet, but he had to protect the tanks. He did this job with one other person, and they didn't have any armory, guns, or even a uniform, which made this job even harder. He and my grandpa were the only 2 of the 8 boys who weren't deployed outside of the country. As you can see, every member of the Matthews family played a very important role in the military. Although I didn't talk about their parents and sisters, they still played an important role at home, not knowing when or if their brothers would come back. Learning about all of this information has been incredibly inspiring. They each serve their country to the greatest of their abilities, and I want to become like one of them someday. I don't know if I'll join the military when I get older, but learning about this amazing family definitely boosted those chances. Thank you for listening to my family.